I was standing in the kitchen of a Michelin-starred restaurant, surrounded by chocolate mirror glazed entremets and petit fours with 18-karat gold plastered all over them. My hands were shaking, not from nerves, from withdrawal, because after 13 years as a professional pastry chef training at Le Cordon Bleu, I'd realised I was a drug dealer and sugar was my product. That moment, 18 months ago, was when I walked away from everything. My career, my identity, and my entire life, and I never looked back. If you clicked on this video, you're probably dealing with sugar in one of two ways. You know you're addicted to it and can't seem to break free. Or you've quit before and you keep going back and you're starting to think you'll never be free of it. I get it, because I wasn't just addicted to sugar. I made a living creating the most addictive sugar confections you can imagine, and for over a decade. I'm Frank, and I'm a naturopathic practitioner who helps people break through sugar addiction through carnivore nutrition. But 2 years ago, I was the person making you addicted in the first place. So this is the story of how I went from being a sugar dealer to helping people quit forever. And more importantly, I'm going to show you what I've learned about why sugar has such a death grip on us, and the exact method that I used to break free that you can use too. But before I tell you how I escaped, you need to understand how deep I was in. Because I wasn't just eating sugar, I wasn't just surrounded by it, I was creating masterpieces out of pure poison, and I had convinced myself it was art. Let me take you back to where this all began. Picture a 16-year-old kid whose life is completely out of control. Drugs, alcohol, paranoia and anxiety so severe he could barely function. Well, that kid was me, and the only place I felt some sense of control was in the kitchen. There was something about taking raw ingredients and turning them into something special and even beautiful that made me feel human, that I've kind of felt like I had a purpose. And fast forward to 32 years old, I cleaned up my act, quit the drugs, quit the alcohol, and I was still absolutely drowning. Still depressed and still self-medicating, but now with a different substance. Food. When I decided to become a professional chef, I chose pastry for two reasons. The first is that I thought it would be less stressful than the aggressive, ego-driven world of savoury cooking. But the second reason, the one I didn't admit to myself at the time, I was already addicted to sugar. And working in pastry meant unlimited access to my drug of choice. I told myself I was creating art, and in some ways I was. I worked along Michelin-starred chefs who truly treated pastry like it was art. But every single day I was tasting everything, constantly sugar upon sugar upon sugar flooding my system. And because I was a professional, and because I was doing my job, nobody questioned it, including me. Now, here's where the story gets dark. I was about to watch someone I loved die from the exact substance I was peddling, and it would take me years to connect the dots. My father was a senior men's athletics coach. Now, this man ran 18 miles a day, every single day. He was disciplined and followed every bit of conventional nutrition advice to the letter. Carb load before your runs, eat plenty of whole grains, and, fruit is nature's candy. You can just eat as much as you want. Bucket loads of potatoes, pasta and rice, all deemed healthy according to every doctor, every nutritionist, and, of course, the food pyramid. And then he developed type 2 diabetes. At first, the doctors told him it was just bad luck. Keep doing what you're doing, just take this medication. So he did. He kept running, and he kept eating his healthy, high-carb diet, and kept, trusting the system. And I watched him deteriorate over years. The diabetes got worse. Then came the Lewy body dementia, and his mind started to go. This brilliant, strong man who'd been an athlete almost his entire life was slowly dying. And I was standing in a professional pastry kitchen, creating elaborate desserts, and still not making the connection. It wasn't until after his death that the seed of doubt was planted. As someone as fit and disciplined as my father could develop these diseases, then what the hell was actually going on with the food that we're eating? So I started researching, late nights after 70-hour weeks, reading studies, watching lectures, learning about things like insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, and inflammation. And the more I learned, the worse I felt, because every single thing I was reading told me the same truth. I was essentially creating poison. Beautiful, artistic poison, but poison nonetheless. And the cognitive dissonance of this was eating me alive. Now, imagine living two completely opposite lives. I'm standing in a pristine kitchen, creating desserts that people will take photos of and post online, and being praised for my skills and actually being paid for my craft. And all I could think was, I'm a drug dealer. I've been a drug dealer this whole time. And my product is destroying people's lives just as much as drugs and alcohol. So that's when I decided to do something crazy. Something that would prove to me that everything I'd learned was true or not. So I decided to go full carnivore. Zero sugar, zero carbohydrates, just focusing on animal proteins and natural fats. And what happened in those first 48 hours changed my life completely. Now, I need you to understand something. I'd been living with anxiety, paranoia, and cycles of addiction for my entire life. Not just sad or, bummed out. That feeling where getting out of bed feels like climbing a mountain and everything just feels completely hollow. Now I'd tried everything. Therapy, medication, cold plunging, saunas, the list goes on. But nothing really worked for more than a few weeks. But 48 hours into Carnivore, all of the mental health struggles lifted. Not gradually and not just subtly. It felt like someone had completely flipped a switch in my brain. Now the fog cleared, my energy stabilised, my mood evened out, and the part that shocked me most is that I had zero craving for sugar after being addicted for my entire adult life. Now, I walked back into the kitchen on day 3, and for the first time in my life, I walked into a room full of sugar and chocolate, and for the first time, the smell made me nauseous instead of excited. The beautiful desserts I'd spent my career perfecting, they now totally look like poison to me, because I finally understood that's exactly what they were. So I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't continue creating products that were actually harming people, especially when I'd experienced firsthand how much better life could be without them. So I quit with no backup plan and no clear path forward. Just the absolute certainty that I couldn't go back to being a sugar dealer. Now, I know what you're thinking. Frank, that's great for you. I'm not a pastry chef and I can't just quit my job and go carnivore and everything is going to be okay. And you're absolutely right. But here's what I learned in this transition and what I now teach as a naturopathic practitioner that can change your life whether you go full carnivore or not. Here's what nobody tells you about sugar. It's not a willpower problem, it's a biochemical hijacking. When I was a pastry chef, I truly believed that people needed moderation and self-control, but I was completely wrong. The food industry employs teams of scientists that their entire job is to find the bliss point, the exact ratio of sugar, fat and salt that makes food irresistible. They're literally engineering products to override your satiety signals and create cravings. Now, this doesn't make you weak, you're being manipulated by a substance that's meant to be addictive. But here's the good news. Once you understand the mechanism, you can break free, and it's simpler than you think. Now, this is what worked for me, and it's what I'm teaching through my naturopathic practice. For 7 days, you eliminate all processed sugar and refined carbohydrates. Not forever, just 7 days. And you focus on whole foods, meat, vegetables, and healthy fats. The goal isn't weight loss. The goal is to break the biochemical addiction cycle, to reset insulin sensitivity, to stop the blood sugar roller coaster that's creating your cravings. Most people experience what I did. Within 48 to 72 hours, the cravings dramatically decrease or disappear entirely. And that's because you're not feeding the addiction anymore. Now, after that first week, you systematically reintroduce foods and observe how they make you feel. For your energy levels, your mood, your mental clarity, and even your sleep quality. And you can become somewhat of a scientist studying your own body. And most people are shocked to find that the foods that they thought were healthy, the whole grains, the fruits, the natural sugars, are actually some of the ones that make them feel terrible. So based on what you learnt in phase 2, you can create your own sustainable approach. For some people, that's full carnivore like me. Others, a low-carb approach with some vegetables. For others, it's eliminating processed foods and keeping some whole food carbs. The key is that you decide on how your body responds. Not based on some dogma or what some diet guru says, based on your own lived experience. Now let me tell you what happened when I quit pastry and helped people break free from sugar. Walking away from a 15-year career in pastry was terrifying. I had no idea what I was going to do next, and a lot of people thought I was crazy. But something interesting started to happen. People who knew me and people who saw my transformation started to ask questions. Questions like, how did you quit sugar? Why do you look so much healthier? And can you help me do what you did? So I got certified as a naturopathic practitioner and started to learn everything I could about metabolic health, hormone balance, and nutritional biochemistry. And I started coaching people through the exact process I used to break free. Within weeks of following this protocol I just shared with you, they were free. Free from conditions like type 2 diabetes, anxiety, depression, and even PCOS. Not because they were different from that before, but because they finally understood the mechanisms and had a system that worked with their biology and not against it. And that's when I realised I'd spent technically the past 13 years as a sugar dealer. And maybe I could spend the next, rest of my life helping people break free from this cycle. So look, I'm not going to tell you quitting sugar is easy. The food industry has spent billions of dollars making sure you stay addicted. But I will tell you, it's not impossible and it's simpler than you think. You don't need perfect willpower and you don't need to suffer through cravings forever. You just need to understand the mechanisms and have a proven system. So, start with the 7-day reset that I described. Eliminate processed sugar and refined carbs for just 1 week. Observe what happens. Most people are shocked at how much better they actually feel. Now, if you want support through this process, I created a free community called Primal Clarity on School, where I share everything I've learned, both as someone who was deeply addicted to sugar and as a naturopathic practitioner who's helped dozens of people break free. You'll get the complete protocol I just outlined, troubleshooting guides for when cravings hit, and a community of people who understand what you're going through. And the link is in the description below. So, 2 years ago, I was a pastry chef who couldn't imagine a life without sugar. And today, I haven't touched it in way over a year, and I've never felt better. So, the big question is, are you ready to stop being a victim of sugar's manipulation and finally break free? Please join us in Primal Clarity, and I'll see you in the next one.